This is the story of a maid, a woman ignored, mocked, and humiliated for her poverty. One night, inside the mansion of a powerful millionaire, she was forced into the spotlight. They laughed at her, they ridiculed her, but when the music began, when she stepped forward to dance a waltz, no one expected. What happened stunned the entire crowd. Before we dive in, tell me this in the comments. If you saw a maid being mocked at a millionaire's ball, would you have the courage to step forward, or would you stay silent? Her name was Rosa. She worked as a maid in the Grand Morgan estate, a place of marble floors, chandeliers, and crystal glasses, none of which ever belonged to her. Every morning, before the sun rose, Rosa would walk 3 miles from the old workers' quarters to the mansion. She cleaned the mirrors so guests could admire themselves. She polished the floors so others could shine. She set tables for meals she would never taste. To the Morgans, Rosa was invisible. To the guests, she was only a shadow moving silently in the background. But Rosa had a secret. Every night after finishing endless chores, she would sneak into the old abandoned ballroom at the far end of the mansion. She would close the dusty curtains, stand on the creaking floorboards, and imagine herself dancing, not as a maid, not as a servant, but as someone free. Her mother had once been a dancer before poverty crushed every dream. Rosa had never learned formally, but music was in her blood. Her steps were clumsy at first, but the rhythm of waltzes she overheard during rich parties stayed in her memory. She practiced in silence, barefoot. The moon, her only witness. She told no one, because no one cared. But Rosa didn't know that. This quiet practice would soon become her greatest test, and it would happen in front of people who hated her the most. It began on the night of the Morgan family's grand winter ball, a night when wealth and arrogance filled the mansion. Guests arrived in gowns worth more than Rosa's entire yearly wage. Laughter echoed through the gilded halls. Glasses clinked with golden champagne. Rosa moved silently, carrying trays, serving. Food wiping spills before anyone noticed. She heard the sharp comments. "Careful, maid. Don't drop it. Step aside." She kept her head low, but as the night deepened, the music grew louder. The orchestra played grand waltzes, and couples filled the ballroom floor, twirling beneath chandeliers. Then came the moment that changed everything. The millionaire himself, Charles Morgan, called for silence. He raised his glass and made an announcement that shocked everyone. "My son will marry the girl who proves she has grace, dignity, and class. Tonight, he will dance with 3 chosen ladies, and whoever wins this waltz will one day become part of this family." Gasps, whispers. The daughters of powerful families straightened their gowns, fixing their smiles. They knew what this meant, marrying into the Morgan fortune. But then, with a cruel smirk, one of the wealthy women pointed at Rosa. "Why not let the maid try? Let her entertain us with her clumsy feet." Laughter erupted. Some guests clapped, mockingly. Charles Morgan hesitated, but the crowd loved the idea. They wanted a spectacle. "Dance this waltz," one man sneered, "and you'll marry his son." The words weren't serious. They were mockery, a cruel game. All eyes turned to Rosa. She froze. Her hands shook. Her heart pounded. She wanted to run, but something inside her whispered, "This is your moment." She stepped forward. The orchestra began. The music rose. Couples moved gracefully across the floor. Rosa stood alone, trembling, her bare shoes unfit for marble. The crowd jeered, but then something shifted. Rosa closed her eyes. She remembered the nights in the abandoned ballroom, the silent practice, the rhythm in her blood. Her body began to move, slowly, carefully, then with more confidence. Each step, each turn, each movement flowed like water. The laughter died. Whispers turned to silence. Even the millionaire's son, standing stiff in his tailored suit, watched in shock as Rosa glided across the floor with grace no one expected. Her dress was plain. Her hands were rough. But her dance was flawless. And for the first time in her life, Rosa wasn't invisible. But the rich don't give up their pride easily. Whispers returned. "It's a trick. She's not one of us. She doesn't belong here." Some guests tried to laugh again to cover their unease. Others shook their heads in disbelief. But Charles Morgan's wife, sharp-eyed and cold-hearted, leaned forward. "She will never marry into this family. Not a maid." The son hesitated. His eyes lingered on Rosa. There was admiration there, confusion, maybe even something more. But Rosa didn't dance for him. She didn't dance for them. She danced for herself, for her mother, for every night she had practiced in secret while the world ignored her. and as the waltz reached its final notes, Rosa spun across the ballroom floor with such elegance that even the chandeliers seemed to tremble. When the music ended, silence, then applause. Not from everyone, but enough. The humiliation they had planned turned into awe they couldn't hide. Charles Morgan rose. His face was unreadable. He walked slowly toward Rosa. The entire room held its breath. "This maid," he began, his voice echoing, "has more grace than half this room." Gasps. Some clapped. Others protested. But his words weren't the end. They were the beginning of chaos. Wealthy families shouted in anger. Daughters protested. Mothers sneered. "She cannot marry your son. She's nothing." The crowd turned ugly, but Rosa stood still. The heart pounded. Then, in the chaos, Charles Morgan's son stepped forward. He reached out his hand to Rosa. Not mockery, not pity, respect, and the sight of it sent a shockwave through the room. The aftermath was brutal. Whispers spread through the city. Some mocked the Morgans for humiliating themselves. Others spoke of the maid who danced like a queen. The son faced endless criticism. His friends abandoned him. His family tried to control him, but his mind was set. And Rosa? She returned to her small room, unsure of what the future held. But for once she wasn't invisible. For once the world had seen her, not as a maid, not as poor, but as a woman who stunned an entire mansion with nothing but courage and grace. In a world where wealth and power decide who belongs, one maid proved them all wrong. She had no jewels, no status, no privilege, only courage, and in the end, what stunned them most was not her dance, but the truth it revealed. If grace, dignity, and worth could be found in a maid, then who among us has the right to say who deserves respect? Tell me, if this could happen to Rosa, how many others are we blind to every day?